Okay, so you guys understand what you need to do then? Yeah, of course! We need someone to play Giorgio in today's reading of Mary Ellen's story. Yeah, come on, it's pretty cut and dry. Give us a little credit. Right, of course, I'm sorry. I really want this to be perfect. She did win the First Indulgence after all. Okay, I trust you both. I'm gonna get back to working on the podcast. Good luck. Alright, let's have our first audition come in and read their lines. Ah, a newcomer. Are you here to learn about blending in? You're great. Very convincing human movements. You know what? I'm not feeling it. Yeah, me neither. Next! What are you talking about? That was a perfect delivery. Security, escort this man out, please. No, get off of me. Make me Giorgio. Make me Giorgio! All right, and next. Go ahead with your line.
Ooh, are you here to learn about blending in? You're doing great. Very convincing human movements. Does it have the pressures?
Hang on a second, that's not even the right line. All right, next. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Hey, are you here for the, blending classes? You are human, right? Right? Too deep. Next. Hey, how you doing? Listen, I know this looks like a class for blending in, but if you got someone you need, taken care of, we offer those kind of services as well. You get me? Nope, wrong line. Oh, what are you talking about? I thought this was one of those lunch and learn things. Ugh, next. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Hey guys, Trollslayer here. This is the audition for the Chronicles of Clenchport, right? No, that's next door. Oh, thanks. I feel like I'm a shoo-in. Next! Greetings, one and all. You find yourself in the presence of Finton Marybrook, the greatest storyteller in all of Devine. Okay, but that's not the right line. I was getting to that. What's an audition without a little flourish? Nope. Next! Greetings. Are you here to learn about blending in? You're doing great. Also, did you bring any stories? I'm quite hungry. Lord Devereaux, what are you doing here? I was told there would be one last week of narrative feasts. Is this where the podcast is being recorded? No, this is auditions for Mary Ellen's narration. Oh, excellent. I am quite looking forward to that. Next. Ah, a newcomer. Are you here to learn about blending in? You're doing great. Very convincing human movements. Dear God. He's perfect. You, sir, are our Giorgio. Ha ha! Well, yes, that is my name. Tell me, is this the space for Ancient Aliens Anonymous? No, this is where we're recording the Saved as Draft podcast. Hey, wait a second, you weren't supposed to say the name. Oh, no. Here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 42 of the Saved as Draft podcast. Today's episode is the big conclusion of our First Indulgence festivities, which means we'll be covering the last week of narrative feasts, and I'll be reading a submission from our winning author, Mary Ellen Brady. But before we get into all that, I need to break the script for a second here and talk to you straight. As many of you know, within the last 24 hours, something came to light regarding an author in our community named Wendy Cockcroft. It was made known to me via a DM that she had been and has been reposting a lot of anti-trans and very just sort of hateful LGBTQ related content. And I was not aware of this. I interacted with her plenty of times since I joined Substack. I've read plenty of her stories. I never picked up on anything, like that in her stories. And unfortunately, my mindset has always been that if somebody, had those kind of feelings or opinions to the extent that they wish to spread hate, that I would be able to pick up on it in their stories. But I was wrong. And so I obviously did some investigating, asked around a little bit, tried to confirm what I was hearing. And it was very, very obvious that this is not somebody that we want in our community. Obviously, people are allowed to have opinions. Free speech is a thing, but there was an active effort to spread specifically anti-trans messaging and hate. And not only was it done through restacks and comments and stuff like that, but people also came to me with their specific sort of experiences, and obviously those are incredibly valid as well. So I posted about it and made it clear that when you're in this community, we're all human beings. I'm not interested in labeling people. I'm not interested in ostracizing people. I'm not interested in spreading any kind of hate because there's enough of that in the world already. And that is my official stance. And in situations like this, even if we're friends, if I find out that you are spreading hate and spreading violent rhetoric, you're out. I'm sorry, but I haven't come this far and built this community the way that I have just to let bad actors get in here now. Okay? So that's just my kind of quick thoughts on it. And I would encourage you to read the post, if you will. It's called This is a Safe Space. And in the meantime, I am obviously reflecting a lot on what happened here, how it went under the radar, how I didn't notice, and what I can do better to protect this community and the values that we all share. So thank you for listening. I'm going to get back on script here, but I wanted to address the elephant in the room and just let everyone know what's going on. And again, for everyone who reached out to support, thank you very much. It means the world to me. And again, it hurts to have to push someone out of the community, but I'm also not willing to compromise when it comes to stuff like this. Okay, let's get back to the show. So if you read all of Mary Ellen's stories in October, you may recognize that cameo in the intro, but otherwise, I'm going to let it be a surprise. And since we're doing narration in this episode, I don't have a guest this week, but next week, we'll resume our usual interviews on the podcast here. And there's not too much else in the way of housekeeping this week, so we're in that quiet place between challenges. But as I mentioned, power-up prompts will resume tomorrow, so stay tuned for that as well. All right, next up, we'll look at this week's shout-outs from both Jennifer Jorgensen's new event, The Unquiet World, as well as our typical randomly selected shout-outs from my subscriber chat thread. But first, a word from this week's sponsor. Today's episode of the Saved as Draft podcast is sponsored by Bookmatch.
Hey, so how are things between you and that mystery novel?
Oh, not good. They ghosted me like 4 chapters in.
Are you serious? What is it with books these days? It used to be so simple. You could just go to the library and meet some new books. Take one home if you feel like it.
I know. Nowadays, these book dating apps are just filled with stories that are too afraid to commit.
Hello there. Perhaps I can assist.
Oh, no, we're good on drinks, thank you. We'll actually take the check when you have a chance.
I am not your waiter. I am the librarian, founder of Bookmatch, the world's #1 book dating app.
Oh, wow, really? Okay, so what if I want to read a cozy story set in a small town with a rich history and dark secrets? You got that for me?
Of course. I would recommend reading the Starlight Cove stories from Mary Ellen Brady.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. All right, well, what if I want to check out a sci-fi story with convincing scientific elements, but some concepts in there that feel grounded enough to be real? You know, like a Crichton-style story, but with a horror spin. You got that?
Ah, yes. For that, I would recommend The Carrier by Mary Ellen Brady.
Okay. What about a terrifying cosmic horror with an ever-shifting setting and non-Euclidean environments?
Oh my, an excellent choice.
Okay, so then who do you got for me?
I would recommend Fragment of the Divine by Mary Ellen Brady.
Okay, are there any genres Mary Ellen doesn't write?
I am afraid not.
Well, they can't all be winners, can they?
You tell me. She did win the First Indulgence challenge hosted by Bradley Ramsey in October.
Well, why didn't you say that before? Oh, I think I found my bookmate.
Indeed, I am never wrong.
Struggling to find a story that wants to stay until happily ever after? Download Bookmatch today to find the perfect story for you, or just read anything written by Mary Ellen Brady. All right, and we're back. Now that the First Indulgence is over, I'm resuming my normal weekly shoutouts with a twist. To help promote Jennifer Jorgensen's Unquiet World event, I'll be sharing 3 stories exclusively from that shared universe until the end of the year. It's first come, first served, so if you'd like to learn more about her challenge and try to secure a spot in this separate set of weekly shoutouts, check the show notes for a link.
Now, as a primer, the Unquiet World is set in a version of our planet where spirits have returned from across time and space, bringing with them their unfinished business and cultural echoes. So before we get into our 5 main shoutouts this week, here are 3 stories from Jennifer Jorgensen's The Unquiet World. First up is Generational Echoes, The Return of Lao Lao by Unforgotten Books. This first story that I've read for Jennifer's shared universe is a really incredible take on the concept. It features a modern-day couple living in Shanghai, one of whom is Chinese and the other is Japanese. In the story, the main character's grandmother returns as a spirit, and she's immediately filled with both hate and spite at the sight of the protagonist's wife and their children. It's a story about old wounds that never healed, about cultural rifts that echo across time. The spirit acts violently, and chaos ensues as the past and present clash. It's a powerful story, one that showcases how perspectives shift and how things change across decades and even centuries. This was a powerful look at how the shared universe can be used to address real-world issues and old wounds in a creative way. Here's an excerpt I enjoyed. Yumi was currently in the kitchen, wrapping up their evening meal. The sound of her humming, a soft Japanese folk tune, drifted into the living room. Lao Lao heard it. Her spectral body stiffened, and the air around her thickened perceptibly. The light fittings flickered, and the polished wooden floor beneath her feet seemed to warp slightly. "That sound," Lao Lao hissed, her spectral hands clenching into fists. The brittle smile was gone, replaced by a mask of incandescent fury. "That ugly, tuneless sound!" Jian scrambled to his feet, trying to interpose himself. "Lao Lao, please! That's my wife, Yumi! She's a good person!" At that moment, Yumi stepped out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a cloth, her dark eyes gentle and warm. "Jian? Who are you talking to? Is everything all right?" She looked past Jian and saw the translucent figure. Unlike Jian, Yumi had no familial context for the spectral realm, but she felt the instantaneous, visceral hatred radiating from the ghost. Lao Lao's eyes that had witnessed atrocities only whispered about in history books, widened in disbelief, then narrowed into slits of pure historical venom. An expletive for the Japanese was spat out, a verbal bullet of pure bile. "You married one of them?" Jian rushed forward, placing himself squarely between the two women. "Yes, Lao Lao! She is my wife! My modern life! The world is different now! The war is 8 decades gone!" Amazing work from Unforgotten Books and a fantastic spin on this shared universe. Our second story shout-out for the Unquiet World this week is The Mesopotamian Bull by Jill Nobody. This is another interesting take on the shared universe, and it sets up what I hope will become a series from this author. In it, the spirit of the historical figure Gilgamesh walks into a gift shop that sells various souvenirs about him, including dolls that bear his likeness. Farah, the person working behind the counter, grabs a gun, thinking he's some sort of robber. Gilgamesh sees this as an invitation, a challenge. A tense fight ensues, and it becomes clear that the gun has no effect on him. In particular, I love the ending, which insinuated that Farah is herself a descendant of Gilgamesh. I highly recommend you check this one out, but here's an excerpt I enjoyed. "Farah," he said in a growl so deep it resonated in her chest. The man grabbed one of the Gilgamesh dolls and squeezed it with one hand until the plastic splintered. Then he slammed it back onto the counter. Farah maintained her aim. She didn't look at the toy. She didn't shudder at the loud cracks of its splintering. She paid no mind to the counter glass shattering under its force. She only concerned herself with the sight, held perfectly at the level of his chest. At this range, she couldn't miss. "Enough toys," he said. He turned dark eyes toward her. His pupils appeared nearly black against the harsh fluorescence, buzzing with age in their ballasts above him. "Leave or die," Farah said. No emotion, no emphasis. "A weapon," he scoffed. The word devolved into a heavy laugh. "Show me," he challenged. Really enjoyed this one as well. Our third Unquiet World story shout-out this week is The Listener by Felix Thornfell. Right off the bat, one thing I really liked about Felix's story here is that it includes a playlist of song pairings. Anyone who's read my work knows that I love to leave you with a song to listen to, so this idea had me intrigued immediately. The playlist also makes a ton of sense once you start reading, as the story stars a radio DJ. I really like the structure here, which has our character Ray taking calls from listeners who share strange stories about what's happening in this shared universe. Throughout, we also get little snippets of lyrics from the songs in the playlist, which I also liked. By the end, we get some insight into our protagonist that leaves us on a warm but slightly haunting note. Here's an excerpt I enjoyed. "I'm Ray Delaney, keeping you all night owls company till sunrise. The lines are open.
Tell me what's on your mind. Who's on?
Hi, Ray. This is Angela.
Angela, like angel. What holy or unholy story do you have for us at this nightly hour?
Yeah, I don't know, Ray. I kind of felt like a movie star today.
Are you into acting, Angela? Are you going to be the new Cameron Diaz or perhaps the new Neve Campbell?
Oh, I wish, Ray.
What made you feel that way, Angela?
Well, I thought I'd rent a film. On my way back, this group, I kid you not, were all raising these glowing rectangles with flashlights, constant flashing everywhere.
Ray frowned. Some new camcorder craze?
Ray, it was really weird. I kind of just went home. Didn't want to be neutralized like Men in Black.
Thank you for your story, Angela. This made me think. How about a song to warm us up a bit? Here are the Goo Goo Dolls with Iris.
I'm loving these stories for Jennifer's Unquiet World event. To learn more and find out how you can submit a story of your own, check the show notes for a link. Next up, we'll look at our weekly shoutouts. These are 5 stories I've selected at random from my subscriber chat thread, which I post every Tuesday. First up, we have Dance of the Scarecrow by Verdant Butterfly. This story immediately grabbed my attention with its incredible cover art, which was done by Thomas Cargan. I've seen plenty of Thomas's art around Substack, and it's always stunning, but this piece is one of my favorites. It reminds me of the art in those old Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books, which were some of my favorites as a kid. There's detail, emotion, and a haunting feeling to this piece that really sets the stage for the story to come. And this piece was done for the Cozy Council's Autumn Cozy Prompt Challenge. It has a magical feel to it right from the beginning, as crows and fairies swoop down to join the scarecrow in a dance that will last until dawn. Even the rhythm of the stanzas here feels like sort of a waltz that I really enjoyed. The rhyme structure lends itself well to the atmosphere too. It's playful and fun, with just a dash of spookiness for good measure. Here's an excerpt I enjoyed. The scarecrow stood with tattered grin, his hat askew and worn. He'd kept the crows from mischief once, but now they watched with scorn. Then through the fields the fairies crept, with laughter soft and low. Their lanterns bobbed in silver mist, and set the straw aglow. They bowed before the court of crows, and whispered to the corn, "Come dance with us, old straw and cloth, till dawn remakes the morn." They pulled his strings with magic threads, his limbs began to sway. They twirled him through the harvest rows, in gleeful wild ballet. Amazing. It just flows so well. Our second story this week is X Marks the Spot by E.J. Ritter. This one is a look into E.J.'s current project, which is described as a slow-burning body horror novel about love, decay, and the terrible intimacy of infestation. Yeah, color me intrigued. The first thing you'll notice about E.J.'s work here is their ability to craft immersive descriptions and really nice imagery. The word choice here paints a vivid picture for the reader, and continues to do so as the story goes on. There's more exposition than dialogue in this story, but you won't mind because the writing is so detailed and really engaging. It works well here, especially because the imagery is quite graphic. So not only are you treated to great writing, but the subject matter will have you recoiling in shock. It's a really fun horror read for a fan like myself, but it also leaves me with a lot of questions, so it's a great introduction to this project. Here's an excerpt I enjoyed. Claire stared at him. His stomach was full, visibly. It had taken a swollen, asymmetric shape, bulging unevenly out of his shirt like something had shifted then settled wrong. She watched it rise and fall with his breathing, a slow, shallow rhythm that didn't quite match the rise and fall of his chest. In the oppressive silence that followed, the familiar room seemed to pulse with a kind of unease that went deeper than the stacked refuse around them. Jason's hand, still trembling near his temple, began to calm, as if he had reached a temporary truce with the grumbling pain inside his head. A single bead of sweat trickled down his temple before vanishing in the stagnant air. The static hum of the fluorescent screen merged with the TV's droning voices, creating a meditative harmony that belied the creeping chaos in every corner of their domain. Claire braced herself to get up, grabbing onto the arm of the sofa. With a hesitant push, she eased herself into a sitting position, her skin suddenly alive with a subtle tremor. The aged fabric of the couch, stained and threadbare, offered little resistance. She had to look in a mirror. Just amazing. So much atmosphere in that little excerpt. Fantastic work. Our third shout out this week is At the Threshold of the Void by J.M. Gooding. This one starts out with a sort of bittersweet kind of introduction as an 85-year-old man reminisces about his wife who passed away 3 years ago. Then, just a few paragraphs in, he joins her in death. What follows is a story about what happens next. It's a fascinating take on the afterlife, mixing in some cosmic horror elements while also keeping things light with jokes and banter between the protagonist and his wife. The story waxes profound as it goes on as well. One thing I love about J.M.'s work is that he always has exceptional characters and strong relationships between them. The way these two interact will absolutely sell you on the idea that they've been together for decades. It ends on a somber yet beautiful note. A great story. Here's an excerpt I enjoyed. He clears his throat, his face serious. Wendy, am I dead? She doesn't answer right away. She reaches for her cup, misses the handle, laughs quietly at herself. Guess eternity doesn't fix everything. But no, she says. You're here. He waits for her to explain further as the words settle in the air. This isn't heaven, she says finally. Or hell. It isn't judgment or reward. Then what is it? A place between, she says. Not a prison or purgatory. It's not a dream. You stay until you're ready. Ready for what? To become part of it. She gestures toward the light spilling through the window, the way it moves, slow, deliberate, aware. The listening, the warmth, everything that remembers. He follows her gaze. The light seems to stretch, curving outward into dark. Not night, and not the familiar sky he lived under. Something larger. He feels the shape of it more than he sees, blackness encircling a thin ring of living gold. Inside, points of light, too many to count. He looks down at his hands, no longer old but still familiar. And you've been here? Waiting? She nods. We all wait, until the universe asks us back. Then we choose. Fantastic. Like I said, really interesting take on the afterlife. Highly recommend you check it out. Our fourth shout out this week is The Other Side by Richard Loder. This was wild. It begins with a confused character named Annabelle waking up in some sort of surreal maze. We get a few clues about how she may have gotten there, but the mystery here is the driving force, and it works very well. In particular, there's imagery in the story using mirrors that line the walls, and I loved how Annabelle's paranoia led her to think the reflections were actually staring back at her. Or perhaps she wasn't being paranoid at all. The intensity doesn't let up. I loved how engaging and fast-paced the story was. Here's a quick excerpt. For what seemed like minutes, there was nothing but a carbon copy of Annabelle staring back. She was about to admit defeat as her nerves were failing, when she suddenly noticed over her shoulder the reflection in the mirror behind her. It was staring intensely with dark, obsidian eyes and bright blue pupils, from a stance that Annabelle was not making. She swung around, startled, but within the short time it took her to turn, the reflection had returned to normal. She calmed her shaking body. They were not what they appeared to be. Of this, she was now convinced. It was at that moment that a loud, harrowing scream echoed across the maze, some distance away. Her nerves shuddered and her hands began to shake. Being unable to look anywhere with clarity, with constant eyes gazing back, made her feel open and exposed, and now a tirade of vocal suffering was being added to the ever-growing list of anxiety-inducing events. The many small hairs across Annabelle's body suddenly arose as her eyes frantically searched for an exit. Whew, very tense. Like that one a lot. Our final shout-out this week is The Locke Paradox Episode 1, Ballad of Julian Locke, by T.S. Morgan. And with this one, I have a guest helping out this week. Mina Howell offered to assist me with a few of the shout-outs and some of the narrative feast this week since I was running behind on the script. So in this case, I'll be reading this shout-out from Mina's take on the story. Mina says, this one starts out strong with the character noticing minor details that sit differently in his mind. The character decides to become a farmer, but seemingly abandons that idea pretty quick, and he grabs some smokes and a mixtape and heads out. This piece is witty, and it's chock full of wonderful imagery. You can already feel the grunge as the fight for a different life doesn't exactly turn out as planned. Here's an excerpt that Mina enjoyed. Last time he dropped acid, some pissed-off version of himself kept pacing in his peripheral, lecturing him for hours. Something about tearing holes in reality, unraveling identity, and the spiritual cost of screwing with time for fun. Thought it might have been Tony Little trying to sell him an elliptical for the soul. And I agree with Mina. This is a great analysis and a very fascinating introduction that's also very character-driven. It sets up a wonderful series to check out, and it definitely had its hooks in me by the end. All right, next up is our narrative feasts from week 4 of the First Indulgence Challenge, right after a quick mindful moment. Hey there. This is Chill Bradley, back for a very much needed mindful moment. Here's a quote to consider. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate
cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther King, Jr. A famous quote, but it's worth sharing this week. As someone who wants to put nothing but love and peace into the world, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around the idea that people can hate others for something as simple as who they choose to be. I don't like conflict. I grew up with plenty of it. In fact, I've endured so much of it over the last few years, fighting a war I didn't start. But sometimes we do have to fight. Not so that we can hurt others, but so that we can create space for love to flourish. After all, you have to till the soil before you can plant seeds. And just like farming, it can be hard work. So thanks for being here and listening as always. Back to the show. Okay, and we're back. So 2 weeks ago, I launched the final narrative feast of the First Indulgence Challenge, and last week I was out of town, so we didn't get a chance to talk about these final stories for that cosmic horror prompt. As a result, I've asked Lord Devereaux to join me for this segment, but after this, he's taking a very long nap. He's very cranky, and you don't want to wake him up from his food coma, but we do what we must.
Excuse me, I heard that.
Okay. Let's dive into the stories for Narrative Feast 4. First up is Blood Pools Ripple by Ashes of Love Poetry. So this piece actually ties together all of Ash's other stories from the challenge across October. It's told from the perspective of a cosmic entity who's been pulling the strings this entire time. It's an absolutely brilliant twist, and beyond seeing everything from another perspective, this story also allows us to see how it all fits together, including a beautifully rendered family tree. I also really liked how Ashes included links to the various stories as they're mentioned by the narrator of this final piece. My advice? Sit down with your beverage of choice and read through all of Ash's First Indulgence posts, and then finish with this incredible story that ties it all together. This is wildly unique and an experience you don't want to miss. Would you agree, Lord Devereaux?
Of course. Ashes of Love Poetry has always been a writer that brings unique flavors, but what I did not expect was this final, delicious feast that ties everything together, an absolute explosion upon the palate.
All right, and next up is The Schumann Gospel by Bent But True. This one opens with a premise about some sort of hum coming from the Earth. The story centers around scientists who are studying it, and there's lots of speculation about what it could be as the story goes on. It starts to spread, though, and the frequency doesn't seem to be an accident. It's almost like the world is trying to speak. The cosmic horror here ramps up quickly when we realize that whatever's making this noise is building towards something, and it has a plan. Lord Devereaux, what'd you think of this one?
Oh, yes, my apologies. I was dreaming about this story. It's a fantastic premise, and written with Bent But True's iconic style, which feels poetic and profound in equal measure. Delicious, as always.
All right, and next up we have Roanoke by C.J. Knight, a.k.a. Terrifying Tales. This one taps into the real historical disappearance of the Roanoke colony in 1590. It posits that Governor White's daughter remained on the island while her father left for supplies, and she kept a diary. A fantastic setup, and it quickly unveils a cosmic horror explanation for the colony's collapse and sudden disappearance. I remember a few years ago that American Horror Story did a season about the Roanoke colony, and while I liked it, I gotta say, CJ's take on the story here is better. If you enjoy a mixture of historical fiction and cosmic horror, this is a must read. Lord Devereaux, what'd you think?
Historical flavors always bring a sense of nostalgia, so when a writer intends to solve a mystery long lost to time, in this case, a combination of cosmic horror and unanswered questions made for quite the delicious bite.
And next up is The Equalization by Connor Mancuso. This one is about an abandoned dam in the mountains where scientists discover something coming from deep within the earth. It starts as an acoustic anomaly, and it quickly becomes something far more vast and unknowable. I loved how this story incorporated elements of audio logs for added immersion. We get some really haunting dialogue in these moments, which I thought was a nice touch. And with this story, Connor adds another cosmic force to his growing menagerie of Lovecraftian horrors. I, for one, love to see it. Lord Devereaux, what were your thoughts on this one?
Connor's unique combination of flavors has long been solidified over the course of the challenge. I have to know and appreciate how each of his stories add another layer of intrigue and complexity to the cosmic horror universe he's building. I do so look forward to tasting more.
And next up is The Hollow Takes by Jennifer Jorgensen.
This story is set in a town called Middlewich, and it's a town with a dark history. Specifically, it is said that 12 women known as the Middle Witches made a connection with something that lives beneath the town. The children of the town all know a rhyme that's believed to be a warning. What's crazy is they don't know how they know, they just do. It's like it's implanted in their minds. It's all very haunting. To give you an idea, here's the rhyme from Jennifer's story. The wives went down where roots entwine. They drank the dark as bitter wine. They spake its name, they paid its price. Their freedom bound in faith and vice. Now on the eve when the spirit wakes, what the hollow sees, the hollow takes. Stay thee, child, behind thy door, or Middle Witch you'll see no more. When the moon has bled and hollows fed, debt is paid, brides all in red. And so with this story, Jennifer lays the foundation for a really fascinating mystery and a very scary concept as well. She weaves in plenty of things, plenty of intrigue as well, like with the rhyme above. And as a gamer, I got some shades of Silent Hill here, and so I really love this one. Lord Devereaux, what'd you think?
Somehow I never know what to expect from Jennifer Jorgensen, and that is indeed a compliment. Like a chef who can cook any cuisine, Jennifer's stories take a unique approach and incorporate flavor combinations unknown to me. It's really quite impressive.
Next, we've got The Silent Collector by Leron Haywood. As the name suggests, Leron told a story here about someone who collects different types of silence. Some are described as the hush of libraries or the stillness of worship, but others are said to be juicier. These examples give way to darker things, and the horror quickly sets in as you continue reading. The story is focused intensely on this character, and it ends on a haunting note about them looking for a silence that matches the one they bear, which I thought was really haunting. Lord Devereaux, what'd you think of this one?
The absence of sound is a flavor I recognize, but not one I've often considered. In this story, Leron once again delivers on the promise of a fresh premise, but pairs it with the strong character and fascinating development here to deliver a truly delectable narrative feast.
Next is The Sleeper by Mary Ellen Brady. This is another story that demonstrates the power of a great opening few lines. In this one, we find out that a mirror has shown our character a vision of them dying. This kicks off a cosmic horror mystery that is immediately fascinating. As the story goes on, we're treated to Mary Ellen's classic blend of horror and real-world science, which mentions things like mathematical impossibilities and non-Euclidean geometry. My kind of horror. I loved how she brought in this classic archetype of a character who believes only in science and data as well. There's something fascinating about watching a concrete ideology like that clash with things that cannot be explained. Lord Devereaux, what'd you think of this one?
Mary Ellen's capacity to weave complex and rich narratives from nearly any prompt or premise is something that led her to seize victory in the First Indulgence. Sampling a rich and complex narrative feast like this one is yet another reminder of her sheer skill.
Next up is TFW, You Know the Words by Richard Pack. And of course, TFW here means The Face When. And it's a classic acronym used in memes. And that's the premise here. It's a meme that spirals out of control and awakens something much more sinister than you would expect. For this piece, Richard went all out. Not only did he record his own narration, which is fantastic, but he also sourced images from around the web, with permission, and had a few folks send in images of their own. By doing this, he makes the post feel like a recap of a truly genuine internet event. It starts simple enough with talk of googly eyes and the words, but it spirals into a global phenomenon. The horror creeps up slow, but when it gets into your mind, trust me, it won't let go. This is like a classic creepypasta type story in the best way possible. One of my favorites I've read from Richard. I really love this one. Lord Devereaux, what'd you think?
Richard's unique premise here with the inclusion of these so-called memes provided my palate with truly unique flavor. I was shocked and intrigued. Once the horror began to set in, these flavors welcomed me home, and I was left utterly impressed by the sheer skill on offer in this piece.
And next up is The Invader by Tom Coombe. And this is another one that Mina Howell offered to review for me on the podcast today. So here's what Mina had to say about Tom's story. In this piece, we meet the world's worst wedding guest, someone who sneaks in, takes food and drinks, and then disappears into the wind. But this time, things are a little different. What starts out as an aristocratic soiree quickly turns into something sinister, with our dear invader at the center of it all. Here's a quote so you can see what I mean. Everett offered his version of a sympathetic smile, then leaned into Ron, hissing, "No one outside these families has ever witnessed a wedding before, invader. We can't just let you leave. And if you had really been to the farm, you'd be loam in the garden.
sit tight, toast the bride, and this will all be over soon.
A great review for Mina, and I agree that this story took something normal and then twisted it into something sinister as it went on. A great excerpt from Mina as well. Lord Devereux, what did you think?
Mina's assessment of the invader is correct. The story begins with something that should be simple, happy. Instead, things take a darker turn, and the truth that comes to light is really quite delicious.
Next up, we have The Shrine Maiden by Verdant Butterfly. This poem from our favorite butterfly immediately captivates with its beautiful rhythm and flow. The rhyme structure, too, makes everything feel almost ethereal in the best way possible. Something I love about this piece is that it adheres to the established style, tone, and flow, but it also tells a really compelling story in general. Maintaining both of those things is not easy. It takes a lot of skill and focus from the writer, but that, of course, is why Verdant Butterfly is one of my favorites. Lord Devereux, what'd you think of this one?
Our butterfly once again shows that her wings can shift the winds of time, because once I began sampling this piece, time itself stopped until I finished. This was a captivating, lyrical, delicious piece of poetry that leaves a wonderfully haunting aftertaste.
All right, and our final narrative feast this week is The Clockmaker's Inheritance by Brenda, A Voice That Wonders. This is our third shout out from Mina Howell this week, so shout out to her again for helping me out with this, and here's what she had to say about The Clockmaker's Inheritance. There's a solemn nostalgia that clings to the air in this piece, and a mystery that whispers through every word. The clocks that were made by the characters' ancestors start to fall out of time, and more is lost than just a few seconds. This piece has it all. Intrigue, lost family secrets, and a mysterious order that seems to have all the answers. Here's a really great excerpt. Master Wren spoke softly. This is not a clock. It is a mouth. The room grew cold. Someone whispered that time had begun to reclaim its voice, that our keeping of time, our measuring, and our diligence had offended the Dominion. Amazing. Great analysis, and seriously, thank you to Mina again for helping me out with some of the shoutouts this week. It really helped me get this podcast over the finish line. So if you get a chance, say thank you to her. I know she'd appreciate it. All right. And if you want me to bring on other authors to talk about shoutouts for stories, let me know. It could be a fun way to switch things up, but, I'm cool either way. And speaking of switching things up, next we have my full narrated story this week for the winner of the First Indulgence, Mary Ellen Brady. This story will be replacing our interview this week, but trust me when I say you're going to have a lot of fun listening to this one. This story from the challenge was for our one and only horror comedy prompt. So without further ado, let's dive into my full narration for Ancient Aliens Anonymous by Mary Ellen Brady. Bob's mop made a wet, rhythmic squeak slap against the linoleum as he pushed it down the hallway of the Maplewood Community Center. 10:47 p.m. The fluorescent lights hummed their tired song. They flickered like Morse code messages. He'd been working nights for 3 months straight now. The solitude suited him just fine. No awkward break room conversations, no forced smiles. Just Bob, his cart, and the smell of industrial-strength pine cleaner that had probably burned off most of his nose hairs by now. He was pondering his leftover meatloaf in the break room fridge when he heard squeaky voices. Conference room B, the one that was supposed to be empty after 8 p.m. Mommy and Me yoga class. Bob paused, his hand tightening on the mop handle. The voices were muffled but enthusiastic, punctuated by what sounded like applause. Probably forgot to lock up, Bob thought. Again. He abandoned his mop. It stood there like a sad, sodden soldier as he trudged toward the room. His keys jangled against his hip, a sound that made him feel official, important, but tonight, just loud, intrusive. The door was slightly ajar. Warm yellow light spilled out into the hallway along with a distinctly ozone aroma, sharp and electric, like the air after a lightning storm. Bob knocked. Hey, we're closed. The door swung open. Inside, a circle of folding chairs held approximately 12 people. They all turned to look at him with expressions of delighted surprise. The man at the front of the room made Bob's breath catch in his throat. Wild, gravity-defying hair. In fact, it moved independently of any breeze. Intense eyes. A linen shirt that looked expensive but somehow rumpled. Bob knew that face. Everyone knew that face. Giorgio Tsoukalos, Bob whispered. Ah, a newcomer!
Giorgio spread his arms wide. His smile revealed teeth, slightly too white, too even, like they'd been installed rather than grown. Are you here to learn about blending in? You're doing great. Very convincing human movements.
Bob blinked. I am human.
Of course. Giorgio clasped his hands together. That's the spirit. Commitment to the role.
The group erupted in applause. One woman, in a floral cardigan, clapped with her palms perfectly flat. They produced a sound like meat slapping against a countertop. A man in a business suit gave a thumbs up, but held it sideways.
I don't.
Bob started backing toward the door. His sneakers squeaked against the floor.
I think there's been a mistake. No mistakes in this universe.
Giorgio bounded forward with movements that were too fluid.
Only opportunities for growth. Please, sit. You've taken the hardest step, admitting you need help.
Help with what? A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses stood up, his legs straightened in segments, like a telescope extending.
Help with being human.
He consulted a piece of paper covered in crayon drawings.
I am... checks notes. Kevin! This week, I successfully navigated a conversation about the weather without once mentioning solar radiation patterns or atmospheric composition.
Thunderous applause. Someone whistled. It came out like a tea kettle. Bob found himself being gently guided to an empty chair. Giorgio's hand on his shoulder was warm, like touching a heating pad warm.
I think I should. Nonsense. We're just getting to the good part. Steve was about to share.
A middle-aged man with a mustache, so perfect it looked like it was drawn on by a Sharpie, stood up. His smile was enthusiastic.
Hello, I am Steve. Human name, common, non-suspicious.
He paused for effect.
This week I successfully consumed solid food, without disintegrating it into easily consumable molecular level elements first.
The group erupted.
Fantastic progress, Steve!
Giorgio beamed.
And how did it taste?
Fluffy, Steve said carefully.
With flavor components. Wet, goopy. I did not analyze the atomic structure even once. Outstanding!
Giorgio turned to the group.
See? This is what I'm talking about. Steve has been with us for 7 months, and look at that progress. Remember when you first arrived, Steve? You couldn't even blink correctly.
Steve nodded gravely.
Yeah, I was blinking sideways. My coworker's parental units noticed.
Bob's head was swimming. The room smelled like copper and cinnamon. It made his sinuses tingle. He gripped the edges of the folding chair. The metal was vibrating.
Now,
Giorgio continued, pacing in front of the group. His hair reached toward the ceiling.
Who else has victories to share?
A woman in yoga pants shot her hand up so fast it made a whoosh sound.
Oh, me! Oh, me! I told my coworkers I was tired, and they accepted this without demanding to inspect my energy reserve battery.
Beautiful, Melissa! You see, everyone, it's the small details that matter. Humans are very concerned with energy levels. They even have special beverages.
He gestured to a coffee maker in the corner, which was definitely not plugged in, but was somehow burbling anyway.
We must master these rituals. The coffee, the small talk,
He checked his own notes.
the fantasy football.
A collective groan.
I know,
Giorgio soothed.
The fantasy football remains difficult. How can a football be fantasy when it clearly exists? But we persist.
Bob opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He felt like a fish, which was ironic because the man next to him smelled distinctly of seawater, despite them being 400 miles from any ocean.
I don't understand what's happening,
Bob finally managed. Giorgio's face softened. He pulled up a chair and sat down backward on it. His arms draped over the back in a way that would have looked casual if his elbows weren't bending in the wrong direction.
Bob. It is Bob, yes? I can sense these things. We are a support group. Ancient Aliens Anonymous. Though, between you and me, the anonymous part is somewhat redundant when we all know what we are.
He leaned in conspiratorially.
We're here to help each other blend in, to pass as humans, to master the complex rituals of your, our species. But
Bob stopped. Something was happening in his chest. A warmth. A flutter. These people, aliens, apparently, which was insane, but these people were looking at him like he belonged. Like he was one of them.
No one ever looked at Bob like he belonged. Ever. In 40 years. "You think I'm one of you," Bob said slowly.
Ha ha, aren't you?
Giorgio's eyes twinkled.
Tell me, Bob, have you ever felt different? Like everyone else got a manual for being human, and you somehow missed the distribution day?
Bob's throat tightened. "Yes."
Do you struggle with small talk? Find yourself saying the wrong thing at parties? Unsure when to make eye contact and when to look away?
"All the time."
Do you feel,
Giorgio said softly, his ridiculous hair conveying sympathy,
like you're constantly performing? Like everyone else is in on a joke you don't understand?"
Bob nodded. His eyes were getting misty. "Yes."
Then you, my friend, belong here.
Giorgio stood, spread his arms.
Welcome to Ancient Aliens Anonymous.
The group applauded. Bob found himself smiling. Actually smiling. When was the last time anyone had welcomed him anywhere?
But I'm not. I can't be.
Bob gestured helplessly at Giorgio.
You're not actually aliens, right? This is like for social anxiety?
Giorgio's hair did something that could only be described as a shimmer.
Bob, I've been studying ancient civilizations for decades. I've built a career on asking the difficult questions. And the most difficult question of all is this. What if the truth has been hiding in plain sight all along?
He snapped his fingers. The lights dimmed. The coffee maker unplugged itself and rolled into a corner.
Whoa,
Bob whispered.
I'm not saying it was aliens,
Giorgio said, his eyes twinkling.
But it was aliens.
Steve stood up. His mustache fell off. Underneath, his face was smooth and silver like mercury. "We mean you no harm, Bob Human. We simply wish to exist peacefully among your kind, to experience your culture, to understand why you are so obsessed with storing food in the ice cube, only to heat it again later."
Refrigerators,
Melissa offered helpfully. Her skin flickered, revealing green scales beneath.
We're still working on the terminology.
Bob should run. He should scream. He should definitely not be sitting here watching a support group of actual aliens practice being human. Instead, he said, "I could help with that." Giorgio's face, still human, lit up like a supernova.
You'd do that. You'd help us.
Bob shrugged. "I'm here anyway. And honestly, this is the first group I've ever been to where I didn't feel like the weird one." The room exploded in cheers. Someone's disguise fully dropped, revealing a being that looked like it was made of living light. Kevin's glasses fell off, showing eyes that were just endless galaxies. The smell of ozone intensified until Bob's tongue tingled. And Giorgio pulled Bob into a hug that felt like being wrapped in warm static electricity with 18 arms. His hair definitely touched Bob's face. It felt like fiber optics.
We have so much to learn from you.
Giorgio pulled back, gripping Bob's shoulders.
Tell me, Bob, what is the appropriate response when someone asks, "How are you?" We've been saying functional and operating within normal parameters, but people give us strange looks.
Bob laughed. Yeah, that's not quite right. Let me help you. He settled into his chair as Giorgio handed him a clipboard covered in incomprehensible symbols. Around him, the aliens dropped their disguises one by one. They became themselves. Bob's chest uncurled. Something that had been tight for as long as he could remember. Relaxed. Maybe he wasn't an alien. Maybe that didn't matter. Maybe belonging wasn't about being the same as everyone else. Maybe it was about finding people who saw you and wanted you around anyway. "Okay," Bob said, clicking a pen that wrote in 3 colors at once. "Lesson 1. When someone asks how you are, you say, 'Fine,' even if you're not. It's a human thing. We're all pretending. Together." Giorgio's hair wiggled with excitement.
Brilliant! Haha! See, everyone, Bob understands. The collective pretending. This is why we need him.
As the meeting continued, Bob found himself explaining the intricacies of weather-based small talk, the importance of pretending to understand sports, and why humans say, "I'm literally dying," when they're mildly inconvenienced. The aliens took notes. They asked questions. For the first time in his life, Bob was the one who fit in. When the meeting ended at midnight, Giorgio walked Bob to the door. His hair settled into something almost normal, though it glowed in the dark.
"Same time next week?"
Giorgio asked. Bob picked up his abandoned mop, the water long since gone cold. "Wouldn't miss it."
"Oh, and Bob,"
Giorgio's eyes twinkled,
If you could bring those donuts everyone speaks of, we've been trying to understand their purpose.
They're just food, Giorgio.
Are they, though?
Giorgio's hair wiggled knowingly.
Are they food?
Bob pushed his cart down the hallway, grinning like an idiot. Behind him, he heard the conference room door close, followed by a small thunderclap and the smell of lightning. He didn't turn around. He had a support group meeting to prepare for, and donuts to buy. So many donuts. All right, and before we wrap up here, let's talk about next week on Substack. I'm trying to keep things business as usual with everything going on, but I know the events of this week have really shaken the community. I want you all to know that I'm here if you need to talk, and if you have any feelings about what happened or how I chose to handle it, I'm always happy to listen and hear those too. Unlike other internet personalities, I'm always going to be about accountability, and I strive to remain humble. I want to know what I'm doing well, but I also want to know what I could be doing better. We're all in this together. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, because I'm always here to listen. Okay, starting tomorrow, our power-up prompts are back with a fresh new set. This one will be open genre, but as always, check the poll at the end to pick which genre you want to focus on the following week. This coming Tuesday is also the release date for Order of the Pawn Chapter 4. I've got most of it written, and Mina Howell actually recorded some voiceover for me, since her character Solara features heavily in this chapter. So now it's up to me to record the narration and finish writing it. Apologies for the delay on this one. It did get pushed back due to my work travel. Beyond that, I think I'm going to take things a little easier this coming week. I've got an interview lined up for the podcast, but in general, I just need a second to breathe. These last few weeks have been a lot, to say the least. But as always, thank you so much for your support. I just want to do right by this community and everyone in it. I want this to be a safe, inclusive space, and as you can see, I'm not afraid to enforce that when someone tries to threaten it. I'm wishing you all a safe and productive week, and I'm hoping for some peace for all of us. Thanks as always for listening. This is Bradley Ramsey, signing off.
Excuse me, Mr. Bradley?
You don't need to call me Mr. Bradley, Schmeagle. Bradley's fine. What's up?
We wants you to read us another Marianne Brady story.
Guys, I'm really busy.
Please!
Okay, fine.